And joining us right now is Caroline Glick. She's the senior contributing editor at the Jerusalem Post. And Caroline, before we get into the question of whether America is ready for the type of security that Israelis live with on a daily basis due to the recent bombing attack in Boston, I would love for you to just comment quickly, if you can, on the breaking news that rockets were fired into Eilat in southern Israel, including a shutdown of the airport. What do you know about this?
Well, the rockets were apparently launched from Egyptian-controlled Sinai. And this isn't the first time that it's happened since the revolution began in Egypt that led to the overthrow of the Mubarak regime in January of 2011. Israel has been attacked numerous times by projectiles and terrorists emanating from the Sinai, from Egypt. And it's really part of the whole failure of the post-Mubarak regime, whether it's the military dictatorship or now the Muslim Brotherhood, to exert control over the country as it slides very rapidly into the status of failed state.
And has the government made any mention of whether the Iron Dome defense system was deployed there and whether it worked with these incoming rockets?
It was deployed and it didn't work. It's not clear where it was pointing, I don't know what kind of projectiles they were, what the range was. No, it didn't go off for whatever reason.
Well, the wire reports say they were Katyusha rockets, which are, I think, notoriously sort of inaccurate rockets, but still dangerous nonetheless.
Right, but it should have been alarmed. So, I mean, the alarm should have been set. So I'm not clear why it didn't go off, but it did not go off.
Very interesting. Well, let's turn to what we're facing in this country right now. You no doubt have seen the coverage out of Boston. This is the kind of thing that folks in Israel have to live with every day. Look, when you visit Israel, one thing you notice is security is everywhere. And I guess that's what is necessary given the environment in which you live. Do you think Americans are ready for something like that?
Well, I think Americans already go through the American security in a lot of ways is more stringent than Israeli in the airports, for instance. And I think that it's also in a way more. Israeli security is very intrusive, but it's also very targeted. So, yes, everybody has to go through security checks when we enter into parking lots or shopping malls or supermarkets or whatever, but. They're not as cumbersome in some ways as the security checks at airports in the United States because we know who our enemy is. And in the United States, you see sort of this attempt on the part of authorities to just deny away who these inspections are targeting. And if you're not willing to say that you're targeting Islamic terrorists who are in the main, the most likely culprits in all of the terrorist attacks in Israel and in the United States, for that matter, and in Europe, then your security inspections, no matter how stringent they are, aren't going to actually be effective because if you're not targeting the people who are going to be carrying out the attacks, you're not doing anything.
But you make a good point. This was an attack in Boston on a soft target. In Israel, if you go into a hotel lobby, you're going to be greeted by somebody and checked out. You talk about how when you go to places like shopping malls and Israel, you're going to be looked at pretty closely. We don't have that in this country.
You go through a metal detector. No, you go through a metal detector, and when you drive into an underground parking lot, then your trunk and your glove compartment and the vacuum of your car are all inspected.
Well, we just had a report. Our reporter from ABC News was in Boston and said that the latest intelligence is that these bombs were left in duffel bags. They were brought in and just pretty much left on the curb, and then a little later they were detonated. Talk to me about the culture in Jerusalem, in a big city like that. If there's a duffel bag just sitting there on the curb, do people just ignore it? Do they just sit there, or is everybody sort of fine-tuned to the idea that anything sitting in a public place could potentially be an attack?
Yeah, just about anybody in Israel who saw a duffel bag just sitting on the curb would call the police immediately, and a bomb squad would come within, seconds or minutes, depending on their proximity, to inspect it and blow it up.
And there's a big push right now from Boston police trying to get private security cameras that might have caught something on the street, or if people with their cell phones happen to be videotaping. But tell me what it's like in Jerusalem. Do you have a lot of security cameras that the authorities have installed in public places?
Again, not that much, because when you know what you're looking for, you look for it. When you refuse to acknowledge what you're supposed to be looking for, you don't really look for anything in particular, which means that you have to look at absolutely everything. So you spend a lot of time sifting through completely irrelevant file footage, photographic evidence of nothing, and waste a lot of time when you should be able to immediately hone in your search on likely culprits, also to prevent it.
Well, but when we talk about Israel, we say, man, there's one thing the Israelis get right, and that's security.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, what can we learn from Israel that might help us avoid something like this in the future?
You have to be able to identify who it is that is attacking you, and you have to be able to recognize that when people are calling for the annihilation of the American people and the United States of America, that precautions have to be taken against them, and not treat equally, toddlers and imams who are standing in an airline terminal and having communal prayers or frightening passengers.
It sounds like you're saying, in a nutshell, Caroline Glick, that the U.S. has to get real and drop all the political correct bullcrap.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. What I find very frightening about the political culture of the United States right now is both under the Bush administration and under the Obama administration, the federal government has outlawed talk about jihad. You're not allowed to talk about jihad. You're not allowed to talk about global terrorism. Euphemisms have been adopted to prevent federal authorities from even discussing the threats that they're supposed to be contending with. Lecturers in U.S. military academies have been fired recently for trying to teach U.S. military commanders about the doctrine of jihad, which they're fighting in Afghanistan, they were fighting in Iraq, and so on and so forth. So I find that frightening, actually, and it's not just the Obama administration that's doing it. Under Condoleezza Rice, these prohibitions were instituted in the State Department in 2007.
All right, Caroline Glick, we so thank you for joining us. She is the senior contributing editor for the Jerusalem Post, and she's been our guest this morning. Thank you, Caroline.